Hi, welcome to our webinar about Vaadin 7.2. This is a minor release for Vaadin. It was released like 2 weeks ago, so you can probably download it already. And it was supposed to be a larger release, and it was supposed to happen earlier, but during its rocky path there were some features that were dropped off, and I think it's still quite large release after all. So there are big improvements, and it's definitely worth of a webinar. My name is Matti Tahvonen. I work as a developer advocate here in Vaadin, and my special guest is Leif Åstrand. And he's one of the greatest minds in our R&D, I'd like to say.
Okay, thank you.
And he can probably answer any questions that you have on Vaadin. But today, if you want to prove me wrong about this man's skills, you can fill in some Vaadin 7.2 related questions to our Tori forum, where you are probably watching this broadcast. And we can see if we have some time to answer them in the end. First, in the webinar, we will go through some of the changes that we have done for the 7.2, and then we will shortly also see about these features that were postponed and which will be released in next releases, like 7.3 and 7.4. And then in the end, we will return to those questions that you have filled in before or you have filled in now during the webinar to the forum. So let's get started with the features and improvements. And first, we are going to discuss about kind of hidden improvements. There are lots of improvements that you pretty much don't see as a developer necessarily, but there are still some changes that help you to deploy them to new application servers and deploy them to new devices also.
Yeah.
So the very first thing that we have been discussing, especially in our blog post about 7.2 was this IE11 support. What does this actually mean? Because I think it used to work with IE11 also beforehand.
Yes, it worked basically without any problems with IE11, also like Vaadin 7.1 and all older versions. The thing that we have changed now is that we have like native support for IE11. Previously we just told IE11 that, hey, you should pretend you are IE10, and well, everything worked because it worked the way it worked in IE10, but now we are like really using IE11 as an IE11 browser.
Okay, so this means?
This means, for instance, that because it doesn't need to simulate old behaviors, we have slightly better performance, so quickly, based on some quick benchmarks, it's maybe 10% faster than what it used to be, just because it doesn't need to emulate.
Yeah. So nothing dramatic, but still some progress forward.
Yeah.
And IE has used to be, especially in the past, it was clearly the slowest browser. And
yeah, well, that's if you look at IE8, for instance. IE10 was already quite good.
Yeah.
It was. So. Yeah. It didn't need to be ashamed of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, IE is actually pretty good nowadays,
especially
about the browser support. Or sorry, not about browser support, but like
mobile devices maybe.
It works like the specification says.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
actually, even better than some browsers like Safari nowadays.
Yeah, and actually also like now with Vaadin 7.2, we are using Widget 2.6 basically, and in that it was made some changes actually, because now IE11 identifies itself not as an IE version but just like a normal standard compliant browser, and actually it turned out that some parts in Widget was not really that standards compliant, but instead happened to use some small tweaks from basically from Firefox, which is like the foundation there. So that has now also been changed, so that from like a technical point of view, IE 11 is really the same as, for instance, Firefox is.
Yeah. So, is there anything else regarding this IE thing?
One thing is that we get also pointer event support.
Yeah. So this is the new API that Microsoft has invented to kind of handle all the event types, not just mouse events and touch events separately, but now you have a same API through which you are using them.
So all Vaadin code everywhere, or most Vaadin code just handles click events, and then the browser, if it's a touch device, the browser also simulates these click events. And then in some special parts, we also handle touch events. And then the theory with these pointer events is that you always only need to care about pointer events. And then that would be all. I really hope that eventually all browsers will start supporting this, so we can get rid of these completely different ways of handling events.
We'll see that in the future. Let's hope so.
At least Chrome is going in that way.
Okay. And now, if you're working with client-side code in Vaadin, then you have some kind of Java API.
Yes, there's full Java API for doing all things related to pointer events directly in the browser. This is of course not anything you would directly use on the server side, because all the responsiveness and those kinds of things would make it really inconvenient. So we have not even made it available. But things like drag and drop and handling custom scrolling and all those kinds of things are now using pointer events, and you can also use them yourself if you want to do something special.
So if I make my own widget, then I can use this API. How do you verify that IE 11 works really with Vaadin?
We are doing this thing called testing.
Okay, that's a bit surprising actually.
Come on. No, but so we have this big list of automatic UI tests that we run in all the browsers and like verify that screenshots still look the same as they did before making changes, and all those are now also run on IE 11, which means that if there is some problem, we introduce something that makes IE 11 support breakdown, then
what are actually all these browsers that you are using there?
Oh, that's a tough question. I need to quickly look in the code. This is not any code that anyone would want to see, but here I have the list. So right now we are testing with Firefox 24. We should update it to use the latest Firefox. Chrome 33, that's also a couple of iterations behind, but those changes are so small.
Those are pretty small, especially if you compare like IE 10 to IE 11.
And then we have Safari 7, and then IE 8, 9, 10, and 11, and Opera 17, that's also slightly out of date, but still no big changes have come. And then we are also, that's not really for like browser support, it just that it lets us, we're testing with Phantom.js, which is this like non-visual browser that just runs everything invisibly. The benefit of this is that it lets us run some tests quite quickly, because we don't need to actually start a big browser engine, but just
and Phantom.js is based on WebKit, so it's pretty much the same as as Chrome and Safari and most mobile browsers.
But the main browsers then is like modern Firefox, Chrome, Safari, and Opera, and then IE 8, 9, 10, and 11.
So there's 5 different IE browsers. So
8, 9, 10, 11. That's 4.
4. Okay. Only 4.
Only 4. This is then for Vaadin 7.2 basically.
Okay, but that's still pretty good, I think.
And actually running through all those tests take like about 2 hours right now. So it's a massive amount of tests that we have.
There are pretty many commits per day, so do you run those tests for each commit or once per day or something?
We run them every couple of hours, and then also for each commit we run a limited amount of tests.
Some essential stuff.
Right now I think we just basically see that it compiles and that the like non-browser tests are working. We are also, I'm not really updated, we might also be running actually Phantom JS tests right now, but that's at least coming.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get forward.
Yes.
Next big topic that was also covered by Sami Ekblad in this Vaadin 7.2 blog post was area improvements.
Yes.
So
these are for blind or visually impaired users, so they obviously can't see what's on the screen, but instead they use something called a screen reader, which is like an extension to the operating system almost. It's actually a standalone program, but still, like, it reads to the user what's on the screen, and then for browsers to know how to read out different things, what, for instance, to say like, hey, this is a button, this is something you can click, and for all those kinds of things there is this specification that says what you should add to the HTML to make the browser understand it.
Completely new thing to Vaadin, so this was only to some components, some improvements.
We have been adding like one component at a time, being actually testing out that everything works as it should. So now for Vaadin 7.2 we have made windows, or like pop-up windows, sub-windows, notifications, and the tab sheet component. We have verified that everything works, and yes, we needed to make some small adjustments as well to the behavior, but really no big changes. But if you are a blind user, you will not see it, but you would see that it's better.
Yeah. Okay. So this is like a really hidden improvement.
Actually we added some small APIs, but it's really something that comes completely out of the box.
Normal developers probably don't notice this feature, but it's there.
Yeah.
Okay. Then there are some enhancements to push. So push was originally introduced in 7.1.
Yes.
But there are some issues, of course, with big new features.
Yeah, well, one issue was that after 7.1 was released, there came new browser engines, or actually, for instance, Glassfish 4 was out slightly before 7.1, but we didn't get support for it into 7.1. And then also some other newer versions of
Wildfly,
of servers.
Tomcat 8, new Jetty versions.
So basically the problem or the challenge here is that the APIs used in the servers for push support are not very well standardized, or hasn't been. Recently there has been some new standards there, but this means that every time there's a new version, someone needs to react to it and update the underlying code to actually support those new features. And that was one big part of what was done for Vaadin 7.2. So now we're using Atmosphere 2, which is like the basic framework that takes care of all these like different browsers, different servers, everything, and makes it much easier to just actually concentrate on getting the data back and forth. Another thing that we also did there quite much was to fix how HTTP sessions work with push, because this is again the WebSocket specification for.
I remember about this. I have been working with Vaadin 6 and WebSocket communications previously. I had this add-on, and there was big problems to get it work with sessions, because WebSockets, they really don't have any specification for the session, and then some servers didn't have any kind of access to the session. So
this is also something that Atmosphere kind of hides for you, so you don't need to care about it. So that's also something that in part came with Atmosphere 2, and then also we did some customizations to that. So now, hopefully, knock on wood, hopefully we should have much better support, especially for things like session timeouts and those kinds of things where we're not really perfect in 7.1. Actually, one last thing on the push front, we also changed the default, because we want to use WebSockets whenever available, but if you use either you use an old browser that don't support WebSockets, you use an old server that doesn't support it, or you might have some proxy or firewall or something in between on the network.
I've heard about those too.
Yeah, so those might not work with WebSockets. So for that we have this fallback transport, which basically abuses HTTP to get something similar, and that mechanism has also now in Vaadin 7.2 been changed to something that is more
compatible.
More compatible. In theory, it might be slightly slower, but it's still the much better like compatibility with different kind of proxies and servers and everything. So that's why we changed that as well.
Yeah.
But that's once again something that a developer would probably not even notice, except that something that previously didn't work might work right now without any code changes.
Yeah, that's a very good feature in Vaadin, that you just update the library and then you get some new.
Yeah.
For example, with Widget set, it has been quite large, but now it just became smaller. It
just became smaller, yeah.
Yeah.
We find some, was it like 1/4 that was quite useless, so we just threw it away.
Okay, that's a nice improvement.
Yeah.
So there was some kind of improvement in the core, and then all users will aid about this change when they just update to the latest Vaadin 7.2. Yeah.
So what we actually did was that we optimized how some like behind the scenes code is generated to make that part of the code much more efficient, and the total impact is about 25% reduced size, which is I think quite good for like, what was it, 500 lines of code patch.
Yeah. And also when we are updating Quit, then we are also getting some slight improvements.
Yeah, Quit 2.6 did not do much about the widget set size, but what it did was that it made the compilation faster.
Yeah, and especially if you do kind of an incremental compilation, that you compile, then make some small change and recompile, then it's much faster than it used to be.
Yeah, because
so if you are developing your own client-side widgets or something like offline mode for .git application, then this will definitely be an enhancement for the developers.
Yeah, and actually to make it even better, we realized that by default, Git is compiling these like one separate version for each browser, and these are nowadays when the browsers are quite similar, it's not that big benefit from that. So by like
we have already dropped out IE6 and
IE6 was the main reason for that functionality, and now when Vaadin 7 does not support IE6 anymore, so then we realized that hey, we can just get rid of making these like completely different widget set compilations, and this then makes it much faster to compile the widget set.
Yeah.
And
widget set. Is there a big penalty now in the widget set size on this feature?
No, actually not. It's like size increased by 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
And the same also, it got slightly slower, but it's not really anything you would notice.
Yeah.
But then the compilation speed
so again, like in Vaadin, in many places we prefer to use it as a nice developer tool.
Yeah.
So it will make it very nice for web developer here also. So when you now add a new add-on, then you can start actually using it much faster because you don't need to wait for the compilation time.
Yeah, actually, like if you previously needed to wait, like on my machine, actually it's quite old. So if I have a couple of add-ons in a project, it can take like 2 minutes to compile, or it could take 2 minutes to compile the widget set.
Yeah,
but now with 7.2, it's down to about 1 minute.
Yeah, okay, so more than 50%.
Yeah. And that also comes completely for free.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also happen to know that there are some features behind the scenes that you have been doing for the next test bench version. Yeah,
so test bench 4, which is quite soon to be released as, is it beta maybe? I don't remember the exact details.
I think there's some kind of alpha version available.
Yeah, I think we have made an alpha and then beta is next. I don't actively work on that project, so I don't remember all the specifics. But still, that integrate some new features, for instance, to the debug window in Vaadin, so that you can easily from your Vaadin application get code snippets that you can include in your test bench unit tests to find different parts of the page.
Yeah.
So that's also an improvement that you might not notice, but it's still there.
Yeah. Let's get now to more relevant changes, something that even developers can see. Font icons.
Yeah.
Tell me something about these font icons. I think I know about them. I have been using them for long, but...
Yeah, so font icons is basically, I guess it comes from two directions. One is that we have these like really high DPI screens, so lots of small pixels, and on those screens, normal like image icon would not look really nice.
Yeah.
And then the other direction is that on a mobile network, this image icon, even though it's quite small, it still takes some time to load.
Yeah, so, especially if lots of small icons.
Yeah.
So if, example, if you have some kind of toolbar or something, and there are
then you might download like 25 icons, and each one is a separate image.
And each one makes a separate HTTP request, and that takes time.
Yeah. You could, of course, make sprites and all these kinds of things, but that's quite complicated to do.
So it's a handy method to combine lots of small, high-quality icons into one set.
Yeah. So what we wanted was like vector graphics instead of bitmaps, and then lots of icons in one file.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of different ways of doing this technically. The one that we thought was the most like convenient and good to use was then font icons, which is basically that you have a font, but instead of like an A and a B and a C in that font, you have like different kind of icons instead of the normal characters. Yeah. And then you can just like tell the browser that, hey, this is the font I want to use, and then you just include that one character that you know what looks like in that font, and then the browser will still think it displays text to you, but actually it is shown as an image because that's what the font looks like.
Yeah.
So it's basically kind of the same as the good old Wingdings font that was quite popular in Windows for like 15 years ago or something.
Yeah.
I believe you actually even have a demo of this.
I have been using. This is my favorite feature, so I've been actually using this for quite a long time during the spring. And this is actually application that actually is built to demonstrate CDI usage and some Java EE technology related to Vaadin, but I have already used some font icons here, like in the login button here. So there is a hand, and then there is lots of these buttons. So now I don't need to look for icons from the internet and download them and add these image files into my Vaadin project, but instead I can just get into the code and for example, let's look at this user form or user view, customer form there, and here is probably somewhere some icons here. So this is the username. So if I open the editor here, I have added this icon here next to the username just by pointing to fontawesome.user.
Yeah.
So the font awesome is a big library of icons. There's a huge amount of icons here, and I can just use them as a normal Vaadin standard, like previously we had this. I think in some theme we had some kind of small set of icons built in, but those were pretty old and they look very crappy on my Retina MacBook and also on iPads.
Yeah.
So I also prepared this demo to have one screen that actually lists all these icons.
Yeah. So this font awesome, then it's like it's freely available.
Yeah.
And
it's bundled in Vaadin.
Yeah.
So now we have a quite nice set of icons for normal applications.
Yeah.
I think I can do with this in pretty much all of my applications.
Yeah.
And if I need something else, then there are some services that you can build them too. By the way, what do you like about this theme in my application?
Yeah, it's really cool. Actually, I think you are cheating because this looks quite much like the theme that we have postponed to Vaadin 7.3.
Yeah, I'm cheating. I have stolen this feature.
Oh, shame on you.
Because actually this used to be my favorite feature in Vaadin 7.2, but now you have postponed it forward, so I stole it.
So now you instead needed font icons to be your favorite in 7.2.
Yeah. It's also quite nice, but I think the theme in general is even better. It just looks so much better, and the good thing in this theme is also for the Retina displays and iPads and other high resolution Android devices and such, is that there are no bitmap images at all in this theme. So all graphics are done using CSS and some font icons. And it's also very easily customizable. This is the project where I have kind of forked the Valo theme, but it's pretty much the same actually that will be released in 7.3 later. Yes. I can show it quickly here. I've prepared some different kind of values for the theme. So, for example, the background color, which is pretty much white now.
Yeah.
Here I will define a different color angle and make it a bit darker. And then all the other colors like text color, selection color and such, they will follow behind. And then also, because flat is in, I will pretty much turn off all the border radius and shadows and gradients. And then if I have a boring business application, then I will need lots of room for my buttons because I have lots of features. And this is why I will need smaller font. And then also, if you look at this, there are pretty big marginals, for example, here. So I will also want to set a variable that defines the size of these to be much smaller. And then if I compile that, and then in this UI project I have a dependency to this theme, I will just need to rebuild that one also. And then redeploy it. And now I should have the same application here. Okay, one reload.
Hey, you broke it. It's completely different.
Yeah, of course with my design skill it doesn't look that good, but you can pretty easily make quite nice variations there from the theme.
Yeah, for instance, that login button used to be blue and rounded, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how does this work?
This is actually we are building our own SAS compiler that will be very tightly integrated into our own tools.
Yeah.
And there we have a SAS compiler.
Yeah, but
which is done by plain Java.
Yeah, I have heard that this SAS compiler, this plain Java SAS compiler does currently not support all these features.
Yeah, but I'm not actually using in this project that one, so I'm using the original SAS compiler and compile it with that and then use it here. It's not that well integrated in the tools as the final solution will be, but it can already compile the theme. So pretty much what's left, why this was postponed, is because of the SAS compiler.
Mainly, yes.
Mainly. So. And when we can fix this in a couple of weeks, then we will probably have a topic for next webinar or something.
Yeah. So that's now you already stole the highlight for the new upcoming 7.3 release, that this new theme will be the big thing, and the main thing that is keeping that back right now is that we are still missing some advanced features from the integrated SAS compiler.
But as this 7.2 release took a bit more than we anticipated before, now there is a new kind of style for releasing these minor releases. Yeah,
so we really try to. Right now we have like two features we are working on actively for the framework. One is this new theme and the required SAS compiler changes, and the other change is, or the other big feature is the grid component. And then we just like developing those, one team working on each feature, and then whenever that is ready, we say that, hey, this is the new version.
Yeah.
So now it's very, very likely that the theme and SAS compiler thing will be ready before grid. So that means that that would be 7.3.
Yeah.
And then...
So there will be more releases?
Yeah. We will make one minor release anytime we have one big feature ready.
Yeah. Instead of grouping all them together.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get forward to the agenda and to the responsive layouts.
Yeah, that was also one.
This used to be an add-on.
This used to be an add-on, yeah. It was, we wanted to integrate that into the core framework instead. So the idea with the responsive add-on is that you can, in your CSS, define different rules depending on how big some part of the application is.
Yeah.
And the reason you might want to do this, of course, you can write Java code to do this if you want to.
I like to write Java code. I've done that a lot.
Yeah. The thing is that there's also these guys who more like to write CSS code.
Yeah.
And for those, we now then also have a way of defining these kind of responsive things. Like if there's a small screen, then we might hide some parts that are not really important, or just move it so that they are like, instead of two columns besides each other, we put them on top instead, or some or things like that.
So now you can just dump all your text fields and buttons into one layout, then add responsive there, and then push the project to your designer.
Yeah, it might not always be the optimal solution, but because then you would still like use all those extra components would still be seen by the browser, but then just instructed to be hidden. But
so in some cases, this Java way of doing responsive design might actually be more efficient for the browser, because there is not necessarily that much stuff that is displayed in the browser.
But that then requires you to plan your project so that you actually have someone who wants to do those Java changes at the point when the designer starts to think about how to make the theme for the application. Yeah. So in this way, we can quite well separate these two things. Yeah.
So if you have lots of CSS skills and at the same place you have skills who can design the UI very well, then this might be very good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can split your tasks in your team.
Anything else we have added?
I think there is quite a lot of small things.
Yeah, I think these were the big things, like IE11,
Varia,
font icons, Varia, and this
push enhancements.
Oh, push! I was forgetting those. And responsive. So 5 quite big features. Yeah. And then we also have a long list of smaller things. We won't go through all these today.
And these are all features that we want to introduce in these minor releases, because in maintenance releases we never want to introduce something that might break some. Yeah,
especially now when the idea is that we will make a new minor release quite often. So then we try even more to only add new features in those minor releases. And like if we have something cool that is almost a bug fix, almost a new feature, then we just postpone it to the next minor release instead. So we have a bunch of these kind of small things that have been annoying, especially like when actually writing some application code. Things that you like always forget to do, and then you try it out and then you realize that, oh, that detail again. Yeah. So that's the kind of things that we have.
Yeah, and if you encounter these kind of things in Vaadin, don't hesitate to add them as a ticket to Vaadin. Dev Vaadin.com, and there add a new enhancement issue and fill it there, and Leif will take care about it.
Yeah, I might not personally do it, but someone will eventually.
Yeah. Let's go briefly through these, or some of these.
Some of these, yeah.
I have set immediate here at one point. So this was actually my change.
Yes.
One of my last changes in R&D, actually.
commit and run.
Yeah. If you have been Vaadin developer for long, there is no chance that you haven't noticed this set immediate API, and it has a long history.
Yeah.
Maybe if we were making this framework today, we wouldn't even introduce this kind of
probably not. Yeah.
API. But back in like 2003 or something, when some ancient versions of Vaadin were alive, there was always a new page reload after each button, and then it was very essential to buffer some of the changes.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you had a form with lots of text fields, it was no reason to send all these
to reload the page every time you enter something into the field.
Only when you click save, then it was essential. So set immediate is to control this behavior.
Yeah.
And now it works like magic.
Yeah. So now actually what Matti has done is that if there is a listener for anything directly on, for instance, a text field, then it would automatically behave as though it was immediate. Yeah. But then if there is no listener, then we will know that there will still be this, for instance, submit button, and then when that is clicked, you actually check the text, and then it can still be lazy. Yeah. Then it doesn't need to send anything.
So it's kind of an assumption that if you have a listener there, then you will most probably always want to know it immediately.
Yes.
So now you can pretty much erase quite many set immediate commands from your browser.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest erasing them, but when you write new code, you will realize that, hey, this just worked without adding it.
Yeah. But it's still there, it works if you set it explicitly.
Yeah, nothing has changed on that account. It's just the default behavior is slightly more advanced.
Yeah. Then there is some exception handling related changes in default exception handler.
Yeah, we used to when there's an exception, of course we never cause exceptions. When that other guy in the project causes some exceptions, then previously this was your exception or your actual code, but then we wrapped that exception a couple of times before actually reaching the exception handler. So now
you never saw the real exception there in your small log window.
What we have changed now is when those stack traces appear in your console, then it's actually only, or by default, only the original exception, which makes it quite often easier to see what is actually broken.
Yeah. Then there is some shorthands also for bean field group.
Yeah.
So
I think you can tell about these.
This was actually also one of my last adventures in R&D.
I guess it was once again something that troubled you all the time, and then you just realized that, hey, this could be made simpler.
Then when I knew that I will be a marketing guy, then I wanted to do this before I go away from the R&D. So basically, if you have a small, simple Bojo that you want to bind to your form,
Jello bean.
Then previously with Vaadin 7 APIs, you most often needed something like 4 lines of code to do this, and you always pretty much did the same thing. And now you can use just one method.
Yeah, so what's this method called then, so someone will know to look for it?
It's here in our cheat sheet. It's something like bind fields.
Yeah.
Bind fields buffered and bind fields unbuffered.
Yes, those are the methods. So those are quite often quite handy.
Yeah.
Other new changes that we have made is that we have introduced converters, automatic converter support for big decimal and long. So if you have a data source that contains these, then they will now automatically be treated as strings, for instance, if you bind that to a text field.
Yeah.
Part of this was also we used to have this number converter that for some strange reasons never really worked, and now we have instead we already had, for instance, integer converter, and now we have also added some other number type converters. So now this not really working number converter is not needed anymore, so we even removed it because we guessed nobody would be using it because it didn't work properly.
Yeah.
So sorry if I broke your already broken code.
Yeah, okay. let's not talk about that anymore. Then there is some kind of reload event for UIs.
Yeah, this is actually
that preserve their state when you reload them.
Yeah, actually, like by default, the assumption in Vaadin 7 is that if the user reloads the page, then it's because the user wants to like start from the beginning. So then, by default, Vaadin creates the UI completely from scratch for you. Then, in some cases, you might want to like keep some things along because there might be different kind of reasons, but you still want to have it so that instead of starting from scratch, the user actually gets back to
for example, the existing document is still there.
And something like that. Yeah. But then the problem again came that some people said that, I want to keep like most of the stuff there, but some small parts I want to for instance, check for new values from the database or something. So now we have also added so that you can get an event when this happens. Yeah. Because previously it was completely transparent. Your code didn't even see that now the user reloaded the page. Probably
very handy for those who need it, but I think most Vaadin developers won't need this. At least I haven't never done this kind of page with Vaadin 7.
Yeah, I have seen quite a lot of them.
Yeah, and you see a lot of these issues because you have so many bug fix priorities to handle. Then there are some changes that aid for widget development. I think you had a demo about this.
Demo. Some quite cool code, or actually, So previously, when you made a widget, you had this connector class that basically takes whatever the server says and just instructs the widget to do the same. And the big thing here was usually a on-state change method that was called whenever anything had changed. And we realized that this method is really, it turns to get quite ugly. So here I have actually like from the core framework, the button connector example. So now it's only this really small method that actually wouldn't even be needed if we would have updated some legacy code as well. But previously this also contained like, or actually let's look at the other way around. For instance, we have like icon alt text. So if the alt text of the icon is changed from the server,
then this method gets called.
Then this method would get called because we have annotated it this way. So what this does is just basically that it says that if there is an icon, then we tell the widget about this new text. And previously this was implemented like
with a big if else clauses there. I remember to have written something like that when I converted some of my add-ons to Vaadin 7.
And we saw that most times this method was like 15, even maybe more, if this do something, if that do something, and that really made that method quite hard to maintain. So instead we have added this on-state change annotation that lets you split this logic up to like small separate parts instead.
Based on this sales speech, I think I will drop support for Vaadin 7.1 from my add-ons next weekend.
Excellent. Glad to keep you occupied.
Yeah. Okay, I think this is enough about these. You still wanted to cover some of the breaking changes.
Yeah, these are some things that we are kind of sorry, but we still felt like it was necessary. So just some small warnings here. One thing that we changed was that there's basically like if you have a UI and the accompanying page object, they have been two different ways of like making the browser go somewhere. One was page set location and the other was page open. And one thing we realized was that page set location, it really it should always be closing what you have there and actually move the user to some completely different page. And also to make that work properly, we need to make some assumptions and blah, 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 blah. So basically, what we have changed is that page.setLocation now works better for moving the user to a completely different website.
Yeah.
But a side effect of this is that previously you could, although it wasn't recommended, but you could have used this set location to start a download, like start downloading a file for the user in the user's browser. But now we have changed things to make set location work better for the standard use case, and instead you should use page.open for doing those
Actually,
downloads.
Now that you say that, this might be that this will break one of my applications. So what's the new method?
Page.open.
Yeah, and there are some special parameter or just
there are some parameters. Just check the Java doc.
Okay. Yeah.
They are quite clear.
Yeah.
Another thing that might cause some problems somewhere is that we have changed to a different but in theory compatible JSON library internally. This is not something that you don't see the JSON library in very many APIs, but it's still used. This actually also came from Git, to which it came from Debian, because the problem with the previous JSON library was that it was not completely open source, because it had this additional clause that it can't be used for evil.
Okay.
And that's like, if you are really strict with open source rules, that is a limitation, so it's not completely free.
Okay.
Free
Can I now use Vaadin for evil?
Yes, now you can use Vaadin for evil.
Perfect.
So it should be completely compatible, but we have heard some reports of some problems and we are investigating those. So just a heads up, if you see some strangeness with JSON libraries, it's probably because of this.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get forward.
Yeah.
There's still one thing about layouts.
Yeah, so one small, once again, changing behavior is that vertical and horizontal layout. Now when you replace a component, there's this replace component method, so you can just like swap out components. So we realized that all the other similar layouts, there it is, so that when you replace a component, the new component gets the like settings from the layouts point of view that the old component had. Expand ratio, alignment, all those kinds of things. And we realized that for some strange reason, vertical layout and horizontal layout did not do this. So this is something, again, that in theory might change something, although we believe that in practice it doesn't affect anything.
The replace component method, I think it has existed for a very long time.
It's a really old method,
yeah. But I think I have never used it in real life application for some reason. I've usually removed the old one and added the new one.
Yeah.
I have no idea why I've been using it that way,
but yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So that's at least the potentially breaking changes that we are aware of right now.
Yeah. We have already spent like 45 minutes and it was just a small release, which with big features moved ahead. So
excellent.
I think there was quite some features anyways.
Yeah, it wasn't that small.
On our agenda we had these big features. We also already covered this Valo.
Yeah,
the new
so
theme.
That's something that will come for Vaadin 7.3 unless something very exceptional happens.
Yeah, and one thing was this grid.
Yeah.
You are responsible about that. Why wasn't it ready? You tell me.
Because we hoped that it would have been easier than what it turned out to be. Yeah. So I guess that's a quite common cause for lots of
And when you are publishing, you don't want to publish yet another crappy table.
Yeah, actually it's not still really completed, but I could show you where we are right now.
Yeah.
So we have been making like lots of under the hood features already. What we are now working on, we have also recently like figured out how all the user interface things should work together. So like what happens when I click somewhere and all those things. It's actually quite complicated when we have like 15 different features that you want to use at once.
Yeah.
But basically what we have here is like, it's a table component right now. It doesn't look that fancy. You can scroll.
Yeah, it looks actually quite crappy.
Yeah, that's because it's
still not using Valo theme or
exactly.
No theme at all.
Yeah, it's not really themed, but we have really smooth scrolling. You could like compare this one to old Vaadin table on an iPad, and it would be really big differences.
Yeah, we will probably have one webinar about this component when it's ready, but show me one feature.
One feature, yes, I was already about to show it. So one new feature that we are adding that is already available is that you can freeze a column, which means that now I set the first column to be frozen, which means that when I scroll sideways, then that column is visible all the time, and all the other columns are just scrolling. So I could make this also for like the two first columns, then it's not very much space available anymore, but you get the picture. And this is something that would have been almost impossible to add to the old table component, and now it went.
And this is really a feature that I remember that lots of our customers have asked several times, and we have always said that it's possible, but it costs, and it has always costed too much, but now it's finally being done.
Yeah, now with like the new underlying architecture, we could add this feature in like a couple of days.
Yeah, and now it looks like this will be in 7.4. And do you want to make any estimates when it's out? You don't have to make any estimates.
It's after summer and hopefully before Christmas.
Okay, that's enough.
And currently the estimates put it somewhere in the middle, maybe slightly towards the summer side. So I think September maybe was the last.
By the way, will this be used in tree table also, or
not in this version?
Okay.
We will add hierarchy support later on. So right now it's just the features of Vaadin table, not Vaadin tree table. But that's also something that we have plans for adding later on.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go through some questions now and then finish the webinar.
Excellent.
I think we didn't have that many questions this time, but Jonathan has asked if it's possible to use non-font awesome vector icons, because font awesome is the one that's embedded in Vaadin 7.2.
Yeah, so basically yes, you can use any font icon library you want. You can make your own font or use some existing. There's actually even we have a tutorial on this in the Vaadin wiki, so it's doable, and you can just go there and see how it's done. Do you want to show how to find that tutorial right now also?
Yeah, I could show also this one service, this icon. This is pretty handy. So this contains lots of font icons, and then you can open the application and then just choose what icons you want, and then you can import some SVG files from your local computer and add them, and then just download the font, and then you can adapt it to Vaadin. And then you can also make kind of your awesome font icon set library, and then from your application access them with a similar
API.
It was an enumeration, I think. The font awesome, and you can make a similar. There is a font icons Vaadin wiki. I think in our wiki there are lots of good tutorials. Something that still not moved to our official books. For example, this page.
Yeah.
So this is written by Mark Englund. Thanks for these pretty nice instructions. So there is some usage instructions how to use the font awesome that's built in, and then there are pretty nice instructions how you can make your own icon set with similar well-typed API as with font awesome.
Yes. So that was that, I guess. Any other questions? Yeah,
Jörg is asking about push, and I think we can answer that because push was enhanced quite a lot in 7.2. Will there be push mechanism available for portlets?
Portlets,
Last week we had a webinar with Leif here, and we discussed a lot about portlets, but we actually didn't discuss that much about push mechanism.
Yeah, this is once again something that is technically quite difficult because the portlet specification does not in any way tell you how to make push or use, for instance, WebSockets. Some portals have some like portal-specific ways of doing it. Others don't.
But so far we have no real support for any portlets.
No.
For doing push.
No. What you could probably do is that you also add a servlet to your application and somehow make it use the Vaadin servlet.
But
push
then
support,
you would probably lose some portlet-specific features.
That you would do instead, yeah.
Because you wouldn't have this portlet request, which is quite commonly used in portlet APIs to make some.
Yeah. So that's the reason why it's not there right now. The question was that when. I'm afraid I can't give any answer. We have been planning to do it. It was actually at some point on the Vaadin 7.2 feature list, but then it was postponed. But I'm not. I can't make any promises right now. We are aware of the problem. We know that there are lots of users out there who would want to use it, but I'm afraid we don't have anything concrete to.
So at this point, if you have a real need for push in portlets, make a separate servlet, deploy that, and embed it as a div element instead of a real portlet. So that's the.
You could.
That should at least work.
Yeah, you could actually also like use the servlet just for like checking for
only
changes
for
and then go through.
Yeah.
Then go through the normal portlet request mechanism to actually get the data.
Yeah.
I believe that is. Or are you familiar? For instance, like our own forum software, Tori, has some push functionality.
I think it's actually using polling there, which is possible.
Yeah,
now. And good polling is actually in many cases just as good as kind of real push.
If
you're not making some kind of notification center software for nuclear plants or anything, then I think you can handle this slight delay. For example, if you have 1 second polling interval, it happens almost immediately, and it's still not necessarily consuming that much resources.
It depends.
Yeah, neither from the browser or from the server.
Yeah,
it depends on what you do.
Yeah, but we don't.
At least this works pretty well in our Tori forum.
Yeah, but we don't have any date for when we will officially support push in portlets. Unfortunately, not.
Yeah, vote it with feature voting.
Yeah,
that's how you can push new features forward.
All right. Was that all the questions, or do you have any other questions hiding anywhere?
Well, I think we have some questions, and some questions for actually there were quite many questions that were not that tightly related to 7.2, so I think we will skip them now. If you want to get answers for those, you can present them in Vaadin forum and ask them there, or if you want to get answers really quickly, use our support services. We have excellent support services. So
you have turned into a really good marketing guy.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you. And we have also already spent like 1 hour for the webinar, which was supposed to be only 45 minutes. So I think we will quit it at this point.
All right.
Thank you, Leif.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.